Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the show. We have a very special episode today. Follow up to our last episode on 9/11. We're going to get into some other connections here. Dave, how are you doing today?
I'm okay.
Good, good. Well, it's good to see you. Um, so, what do you have for us today?
Uh, well, as you said, we want to follow up on the breakthroughs or potential breakthroughs in the 9/11 wall of silence and the um, statements and by Kurt Weldon and Ron Johnson specifically. And Johnson went out on a limb. They're trying to crucify in the press of the conspiracy theories, and he's bought into the conspiracy theories and the ridiculous and absurd and unfounded conspiracy theories. And they're throwing all the adjectives at him, and he has been quiet since those statements a couple of months ago. His staff has stated that he's been awfully busy with the budget issues, which have been quite hot in Washington. So he has not followed up on his idea of calling for a congressional investigation. He has the power to do as a chairman of the certain committees. Weldon, however, has continued to speak out on very popular Patrick Ben David, millions of followers, and also on Roger Stone, the longtime Republican, libertarian political consultant, and he has a popular broadcast also. So I didn't want to replay those interviews because he doesn't say anything particularly new. He sort of repeats what he said in our last broadcast, where he's talking about how he was blocked from investigating these terrorists. Really, they're just actors from coming into the country and so on. And so the whole thing was allowed to happen. People in the 9/11 truth community say, that's a lie hop thesis, that they let it happen on purpose. Lie hop. That's an absurd position. It's absurd because what? They let these Al Qaeda people into the buildings with tons and tons and tons of explosives, where Securicom, led by Bush's brother, Marvin Bush, had the security contract, let them in. So letting it happen, and so Kurt Weldon is, I don't, you mentioned last time, Elsa, that this could be, he could be angling for a limited hangout, where you throw the Saudis under the bus with, the 28 missing pages in the investigative report, and you worm your way out of the obvious uh, conclusion here is that the whole thing was brought about by the U.S. government itself, made to happen, not let happen. And it's really just a lack of basic logic. I mean, as I said, that implies that they let them come into the. He understands that the collapse of the building, especially building 7, is an obvious demolition job. He has stated that numerous times. Yet he's sort of twisting in the wind. But I don't think his motives are terrible. But it doesn't matter, as I said, because uh, all of the evidence that he brings forward lets us understand that the whole thing was a setup. Why else would you bring in uh, with special visas and everything and train these supposed pilots at U.S. Facilities in the United States and so on and so forth? If and have the patsies making spectacles of themselves in bars and leaving Korans around and all of that. If the whole thing wasn't a huge stage show. I don't think we mentioned the Pentagon in the last broadcast. That is so obvious that there was no plane at the Pentagon. Why? Because there was no plane at the Pentagon. No debris, no engines, no nothing. The huge plane, and uh, as General Stubblebine, 3-star general, said as clear as anybody, would want it, that the plane does not fit in that hole. And there's no plane on the outside. And the plane cannot go through 12, I don't know, 12-meter hole or whatever it is. Huge plane. And so the reporters that were there within minutes say there's no evidence of a plane anywhere around. And so, again, just like the collapse of the buildings that we sort of got into last time, what happened at the Pentagon is an open and shut case. If they shot anything into it, it was a missile, or they set off explosives inside. These things, they're not complex. It's not a question of science. Of course, the architects and engineers who we're going to get into here have done the science, and they've had they wasted. Well, they spent I think $700,000. Some of it was my money, not much, $50 or $60, on a study and modeling and all this out of the University of Alaska, and proved that Building 7 specifically cannot fall into its footprint at free fall acceleration without explosives. Okay, so I mean, but really, people, we should have known that. I mean, it shouldn't take all of that. So it's not a logical, it's not a question of advanced logic or anything like that. If you can find your butt with 2 hands, okay, if you can find your butt with 2 hands, then it's done. Then we move on. What are the consequences? What are the ramifications? What does this tell us about our? And I'll just add a note before we get started that 15 years ago, I used to take my laptop around and visit people that I had known uh, in the anti-war movement and so forth, and that were in denial or didn't want to go there and everything. And I just show them the 7-second free fall acceleration of Building 7. I remember specifically when the philosopher up at Denison, Ron Santoni, Brilliant man. So many books to his name on philosophical issues, and visited him in his office, and he was, kind of, laying out he wasn't convinced or not convinced. He was just twisting in the wind. I said, "Well, can we watch the?" I had my laptop, and we watched the debate. His face turned white. Yes, this is a bitter pill. This does challenge everything that we thought we knew about our country and our ruling class and our system and that we basically was basically decent and with a few problems type of thing. His face turned white and he just was in basically shock because, as I said, you can find your buttocks with two hands, you see it. Okay, we didn't need Halsey's engineering study, or that's helpful, I guess, in some circles, but we didn't need all that. You got two eyes, hopefully, or at least one. So anyway, what we want to get into today is a presentation that Richard Gage, the founder of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, has given to a group called the Medical Freedom Movement, based in Australia. So, what his presentation is about is the parallels between um, the 9/11 psyop and the COVID psyop, the two most important issues of our time, and it's brilliant. The only problem is it's 2 hour presentation, and he does go through, I think, what we all know about the witnesses to the explosive event in New York and these types of things, which people really should know, as I just said. But we want to show things that people are not likely to search out and look for on their own. And so we want to play the part about uh, the psychological manipulation, specifically the predictive programming for both of these events, 9/11 and COVID. And it's a really remarkable uh, that you will see, I think, that both of them, in both cases, carefully planned psychological operations. We know obviously propaganda is all over the place. You got to get the vaccines, and it's a terrible virus, and we were attacked, in New York, and on and on and on. We know about the wall to wall propaganda, but this goes much deeper. So why don't we go ahead there and get into what Richard Gage is presenting there in Australia.
So intently. Parallel number 12, implementation of draconian policies and surveillance with the Patriot Act, the Military Commissions Act, the National Defense Authorization Act of 2012. We talked about how devastating those can be. Those have been on Americans and all around the world. The illegal and unconstitutional mass surveillance of American emails, phone calls, and texts systematically swept up and stored in a massive data center in Utah by our government to be used against us. Completely unconstitutional. And yet it was the emergency, again, that parallel that they had to use. That's what Canada's Bill 36 used in order to enact the imposition of fines up to $200,000, property seizures, jail time for physicians who give misleading information to patients or the public. That's how they could take the money from the protesters or anybody connected to the protesters in the trucker protest. Unprecedented, unconstitutional, forced use of
We paused.
predictive programming and foreshadowing. We have feature films, cartoons, comic books showing the Twin Towers targeted and destroyed with massive fear, even projected upon the people. Real Estate 2001. Is there life beyond the boom? Showing the Twin Towers right there. And in Hollywood.
Corner of Liberty and Washington. Lower Manhattan.
World Trade Center. We're going to crash the plane into the World Trade Center.
I'll tell the flight crew.
Langley, can you override the flight control system?
I'm working on it.
And Condoleezza Rice says nobody could imagine hijacking a plane and running it into a building. It's in Hollywood. The license plate, expiration of NEO is September 11th, 2001. These are details that your subconscious will pick up, but your conscious, in all likelihood, once. Godzilla, 9/11. 9/11, 9/11, 911, 911. Interestingly, the emergency, call 911. It adds to the terror factor in all of our minds. And there's dozens and dozens going back years, in this case with Muslims flying airplanes with bombs at the World Trade Center. So is all of this just a coincidence? Simpsons on the right, $9. 11. We pick this stuff up unconsciously. 9/11, Twin Towers. Targeting the Twin Towers again and again. On the left, an actual photo of the Twin Towers. On the right, the Illuminati card, 1995, showing just about the same explosion, even the level in the building. But the show, X-Files, goes much further in telling us in story language what they're actually doing, have done, or plan to do, so that all these things get mixed up in our mind. Take a look.
Driven not only by corporate greed, but a darker objective.
The takeover of America.
And then the world itself, by any means necessary, however violent, or cruel, or efficient. By severe drought, brought on by weather wars, conducted secretly using aerial contaminants and high-altitude electromagnetic waves. In a state of perpetual war. To create problem, reaction, solution scenarios to distract, enrage, and enslave American citizens at home. With tools like the Patriot Act and the National Defense Authorization Act, which abridge the Constitution in the name of national security. The militarization of police forces in cities across the U.S., the building of prison camps by the Federal Emergency Management Agency with no stated purpose, the corporate takeover of food and agriculture, pharmaceuticals and healthcare, even the military in clandestine agendas to fatten, dull, sicken, and control a populace already consumed by consumerism.
And I encourage you all to go shopping more.
A government that taps your phone, collects your data, and monitors your whereabouts with impunity. A government preparing to use that data against you when it strikes. And the final takeover begins.
The takeover of America.
By a well-oiled and well-armed multinational group of elites that will cull, kill, and subjugate.
Happening as we sit here.
It's happening all around us.
The other shoe waiting to drop.
It'll probably start on a Friday. The banks will announce a security action necessitating their computers to go offline all weekend.
Digital money will disappear.
How much of that is already happening since this movie came out? How much of it are you concerned might be happening? Let's go back 10 years, find out what happened at the Summer Olympics in London. The opening ceremony is usually inspirational, right? No, but here's hundreds of sick children in beds, hospital beds. How is this inspiring? What's the message, especially with this creepy, towering terror figure with a needle-like object in his hands, terrorizing the children? Where did this come from? And what's it intending to purvey or portray? With even hints of Wuhan starring in it. And our own idols, celebrities, foreshadowing through fashion what may be coming. And decades earlier, even in the Denver airport, among these infamous set of murals in the basement with sick children and masks from all around the world. But I found this one totally creeped me out. And I think it's really important for us to consider, given what we've learned in the health freedom community already.
You desecrated all of my work. You disrespected science. What the hell did you put in that vaccine?
We created a flu that sparked the demand for a vaccine that doesn't work. After everyone in the country is vaccinated,
And the world?
he'll have murdered millions.
Nope, you don't have it. How much evil do you have to do good? Your father created a world-changing, not world-ending, a world-changing, world-improving omnivirus. And we have taken that virus and embedded it in the vaccine of this Stearns flu.
I knew it. I knew it. He created a panic, and now everybody's begging for the vaccine.
No. Demanding it. With all the entitlement of a first world country.
Yes. And now we have exactly what we want. Hundreds of millions of Americans lining up, offering us their arms, and letting us give them our creation. What we are doing is far bigger than death.
Wait. This
Think my brand new scope can still hold 0 if I drop it off a roof? And soak it underwater?
virus is not deadly.
Everything I do is a cure for our current situation. We intend to stop human reproduction for 3 generations. The busy, endless global assembly line of babies will grind to a halt.
You're sterilizing people?
Uh-huh. In the first 5 years, we'll start to see major birth rate declines as teenagers vaccinated today hit their childbearing years.
You're controlling the future of human civilization.
Is that what they're calling it? It's a very nice euphemism for a species that has replicated like a contagion across the planet, killing all other species in its wake.
That's how they think about us. Ask yourself in terms of connecting the dots here, what relevance, what connections can we make with regard to the dramatic statistics of the female and male reproductive problems following the vaccine? I don't have those statistics. Maybe some of you do. But given that, is that possible? Possibly a part of the problem. I'm showing this information so we can begin to reach a little deeper, to connect a few more dots, like 2025, when catastrophic contagion, it has been planned for or tabletop exercised for in concert with this movie, Lockdown 2025.
Is this about the emergency broadcast?
Yeah, martial law, huh? We on lockdown, the whole country.
You've been warned.
I wish that they'd always say one thing. It's coming.
It's coming, is what they say. But let's wrap it up with this this short one, also from the X-Files.
This is an internet lunatic. You're not saying you believe him.
Hold on, Agent Einstein. You're talking to a scientist.
Forgive me, Assistant Director. It may sound insensitive, but the suggestion is pure science fiction.
What I'm saying, Agent Einstein, is that the facts, as I understand them, cannot be discounted out of hand.
You say they're tampering with our DNA, that they're able to shut down our immune systems by the addition of something to our DNA.
Yes, but I don't know how exactly.
Or how it's being triggered.
I don't know that either.
It's clearly a widespread failure of our immune systems.
Through gene tampering. A virus within a virus that was put there through the smallpox vaccine. It's okay. The Spartan virus removes the adenosine deaminase gene from your DNA. Removes the ADA gene and your immune system will simply vanish.
Yeah, but I'm not getting sick.
It's only a matter of time.
Okay. So how does it work? How does the virus remove the ADA gene?
A process called CRISPR-Cas.
CRISPR-Cas9. RNA and a protein cutting genes at exact locations.
Exactly, but in this instance used as a weapon.
The ability to depopulate the planet. To kill everyone but the chosen.
By tampering with their DNA.
Through gene editing.
Why do such a thing and lie about it? Our own government.
Your own government lies as a matter of course, as a matter of policy. The Tuskegee experiments on black men in the 30s, Henrietta Lacks.
What are they trying to do?
That's the missing piece.
But it's not hard to imagine. A government hiding, hoarding technology for 70 years at the expense of human life and the future of the planet.
Well, they're telling a remarkable set of really disturbing truths and mixing it with fantasy, and you have to decide where that line is. It may be different for everybody, but he mentions the Tuskegee experiments, which were performed on black men, giving them syphilis. So let's look at what Dustin Broadberry of the Cogent.org suggests to us. He says it runs even deeper than predictive programming. According to Dr. Michael Hoffman, first they suppress the counter argument, that's us. And when the most opportune time arrives, they reveal aspects of what's really happened, but in a limited hangout sort of way. We're told that the vaccines were harmless until Pfizer debased their own safety claims, but not before the entire world or so has been vaccinated. Lockdown apologists across the corporate America are now almost unanimous that lockdowns do more harm than good. This is no arbitrary about face, but rather a carefully planned sequence of disclosures when the time is right. Michael Hoffman suggests that the ruling elite are giving notice of their supremacy, declaring themselves virtuoso criminal masterminds above the law and beyond reproach. But most of all, they're telling you in no uncertain terms that you are without recourse. These events are beyond your control, as is your own destiny, for that matter. Eventually, a sense of apathy and abulia engulfs humanity, demoralizing us to the point of conceding defeat to a system we are powerless to change. Buried deep within their rule of law is a hidden constitution that states nothing happens without your consent. Thus, all of the predictive programming we've been looking at. In this version of contract law, once the truth is hidden in plain sight, you have agreed to it. There exists someplace an unsigned contract with your unsworn oath upon it. Now he says the following is a statement which comes from within the British intelligence wing of the cryptocracy. That's what Dr. Michael Hoffman calls it, cryptocracy. Realizing that our activities will sooner or later come to light as conspiracy researchers unravel them, they will release information into the public consciousness. The more we are investigated, the more the masses of people are psychologically processed by the very people who seek to expose us. The meme that constitutes our essential structure is then successfully mimicked within the consciousness of those who investigate us. Success can then be measured precisely to the extent that our work is exposed. Inducing awe in people is to, inducing awe in people is to induce paralysis in them in a type of shock. And so we become, sorry, this is Dustin Barbary now, or Michael Hoffman. Inducing awe in people is to induce paralysis in them in a type of shock. And so we become addicted to the thrills of finding out what our slave masters are doing to us. It is a little bit addicting trying to figure out what's going on with these people. That's from Michael Hoffman. If we have a sense that these are supremely powerful people against whom resistance is useless, then that extends their power exponentially. So we find ourselves right in the middle of what can only be labeled, given that information, as a spiritual problem, because we aren't going to win the battle on their terms, on their battleground, right? This is a spiritual problem. How do we solve it? Well, yeah, we have to connect the dots. We have to find out what paved the way to COVID, what's paving the way to World War III in the Middle East. But we have to go beyond that also. Yes, we have to give information out there. We have to practice. We have to wake up ourselves at a deeper level. It's a spiritual problem. We have to cleave to something deeper within us that's much bigger than we are and much bigger than they are. You see, we're connected to each other intimately, deeply, inherently. They seem to have lost that capability or sold it for God knows what they get in return. So yeah, it's a wake-up call. We have to discover who we really are, our real freedom, and then we can speak.
This is the best scope in the market now. I feel like I might get in trouble telling you this.
I think my brand new
speak out and more effectively. I'm working on this myself daily. And so we can bring the information to them, the movie 9/11 Crime Scene to Courtroom, particularly, and this evidence, the parallels between 9/11 and COVID. And so I'm very happy to bring that information to you. I'm looking forward to a healthy discussion at this point. Thank you very, very much.
Richard, great job. Great job. Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives, your huge amount of work. So what we've got now, everybody, Richard went for just over 2 hours, as he said. So well done. Wonderful, well worthy of review. So we'll have, if you're okay, are you okay, Richard, for the next 45 minutes? We'll make this session a 3-hour session. Good. Stephen, first 15 minutes to you. We've got a lot of hands up. And so, Richard, the ability to get through the questions will depend upon your speed of answering, but you're quite tight. So thank you for that, everybody. We'll go to 3. If you can't go to the 3-hour mark, then watch the recording, obviously. So, Stephen, over to you. And
I think they do question and answer, and all of the panel were extremely impressed with his presentation, which we only watched the last segment of. And we can link that in the comments, Elsa, so that I recommend, but the whole thing is 3 hours. Some people might be thinking, geez, they're putting these conspiracy theories right out in our face. Yes. Well, why would they do that? Well, you see, they've created this category, which is conspiracy theorist. Okay, tin hat wearing conspiracy theorist, which mocking and ridiculing. And it's been weaponized by the CIA, specifically in after the Kennedy assassination, weaponized that phrase. And that phrase has so much power. I suppose it's because they know us psychologically are really viscerally afraid of being ridiculed. I think it goes back to our first day of school, and I don't know, you're just afraid that everybody looking at you, that you might have your socks on a different color, or you might have your zipper down, or we just almost at least I was that way when I first went to school. But just this fear of being mocked, and it really goes deep in our social existence. But so what they're doing, I think, is several things. The most obvious is that if anybody speaks out and states any of these things in regard to the 9/11 attacks, or a conspiracy concerning the virus and the vaccine, they can easily be dismissed and placed into that category. Say, "Well, you're a dumbass. You've watching too many movies. Obviously, you've been watching too many movies." And that's one thing. It just that comes to mind. But yeah, it goes deep. And what I wanted to do, just wrapping up, is that to get a little bit more into this idea of, you see, all of our nomenclature concerning politics, it really reduces to like 6 or 8 terms, conspiracy theorist, or how about sovereignty? A lot of people are talking about sovereignty. Well, so I had to do a little research of what in the hell do you mean by sovereignty? Well, it means that there's state sovereignty. We want the United States to be sovereign. That is, that we don't want to answer to anybody around the world. We want to be in charge of our own destiny. And then there's individual sovereignty, which means that nobody can boss you around and so forth. Well, that doesn't exist. You say, "Well, I'm sovereign because I say I'm sovereign and I don't answer to anybody." Well, yeah, but what about when they pull off a 9/11, and when they pull off a pandemic? Are you still sovereign? I don't think so. So, and then I wanted to get just to touch on the American Constitution. Our founding fathers developed the core theory there. I'm not a constitutional scholar by any means, but I think everybody knows that the core conception is that the will of the people is sovereign. Well, I say, well, people have different opinions. So yeah, the majority of the people, as represented by their delegates, that's the sovereign power. Well, you should think about the fact that at the time of 1779 or 1778, whenever they wrote up those documents, those fine-sounding documents, they didn't have any trillionaires around. They didn't have mass media controlled by those trillionaires. They didn't have the science of psyop, psychological manipulation. They didn't even have electronic voting machines. They didn't have many things that the ruling class has at their disposal today and are using it. The Mind of man is the battlefield of the 21st century, as the Pentagon full spectrum dominance document states. And it's perfectly obvious. They are working us from the inside out. And most people are falling for it. So there's a basic problem here because I think people would have to acknowledge that the mass majority, which is the sovereign power, supposedly, are not paying due diligence to, here we have arguably the two most important events in world history. And how many people have done even the bare minimum to look into them or are outraged and speaking out and organizing? Well, we got some great people just doing exactly that. Richard Gage, for one, and too many to mention. But I think we have to realize that the vast majority, that are sovereign, are not paying attention. They're paying attention to their own affairs, not the affairs of state. So this is a contradiction, really, in the Constitution, because it just doesn't seem to be working. And this small, tiny clique of trillionaires, billionaires, is playing us like, puppets and fools. So that's a base. I don't have a solution to that, except that, as Gage says, we have to continue to try to spread this information and also to try to find a spiritual solution in our own selves and in others. But it's a big problem. And then you see the tools that we're given to think with. Just take one of the most obvious. Good and evil. Christians want to reduce everything to good and evil. Well, I'll tell you what. That concept is going to get you exactly nowhere. Well, what do you mean? What I mean is, just take 9/11. Are all the people that believed in that as the official story, and all the people that were somehow should have spoken out, might have refused to go along, or they're all evil? So who is evil? Everybody that got their shots because they didn't take time to do any investigation? Were they all evil? I mean, the people calling it out, we can say they're good, but we can't say that everybody else is evil. So you see, it's just too blunt of an instrument. You're not going to get anywhere with it. Good and evil. Okay, so these are, that's just one example of the tools that we're given. I mentioned conspiracy theory. That's a thing, right? That's a thing. So if you fall into, if you believe any of the things that Gage has been talking about, well, you're a conspiracy theory. You should see how they're taking Ron Johnson to task as a conspiracy, a right-wing conspiracy theory. Right-wing conspiracy theory. So people that think that conspiracy theorist is a thing, they haven't even gotten started. They don't know anything. Well, if you say the Gulf of Tonkin incident never happened, well, you're a conspiracy theory. Well, now everybody knows that. Every historian knows that. But you were still tarnished back in that day as being a conspiracy theorist. So it's a nothing burger. It's nothing. There's no such thing. And we know that the ruling class, a small minority I mentioned, conducts conspiracies all the time. In fact, every criminal conducts conspiracies all the time. And every congressional caucus, a Republican or Democrat, they're lining up their talking points and their strategies. Well, those are conspiracies, So it's just so ridiculous. And it's that ridiculousness that has been drilled into us for a reason. So we can't think. You got comments, else?
I think that's a good way to say it, They just got us all confused. No one can really make sense of anything anymore. I don't know, like some of
Yeah. There's another thing I had in my notes. I was
just gonna say a lot of like non-political people.
Pardon me?
I was just gonna say if I tried talking to some non-political people about anything, I mean, it's just like they just don't know like anything about anything, so it just seems they just don't even try to like understand an issue because they just don't have any knowledge there at all, and so it just seems insurmountable to even try to like understand any of it. So they just don't pay attention and just continues on like that.
Right.
But anyway. But yeah, I thought that Gage little presentation.
It's by design. One thing I was going to point out.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if you're still not up to speed about 9/11, go to Architects and Engineers and watch their presentations. You can go as deep as you want into the destruction of the buildings and so on. And but you need to get. I was going to mention. Did anybody notice that after 9/11 specifically, every news program had these wavy colored lines, pink to purple to fuchsia to waving behind the presenter. I mean, such an obvious psyop. Back after the Kennedy assassination, they were not so sophisticated, but they had to, after they announced and shocked the public with the president's been shot, then they have the metronome. It was supposedly an advertisement for, I don't know, metronomes or something. And the metronome on the TV, after they made this startling, shocking announcement. But, after 9/11, I noticed that the wavy lines, the different colors blending into each other. You think that's just for a decoration or something? I noticed that I don't watch the news too often, but they have different backgrounds now. But I noticed that back in the day. But yeah, it's mind control by any other name you want to give to it, and it's very sophisticated. The commoners are not sophisticated, so it's an uneven playing field that we're playing in. One more thing about thinking. You see, I mentioned that a guy like Kurt Weldon is sort of twisting in the wind. He just can't, put two and two together. The buildings were blown up. He understands that, but then he still thinks that, we were attacked and it could have been prevented if we'd had our fusion center or whatever and been allowed to track down these terrorists. Well, the two things don't fit together, as I've mentioned before, because if the terrorists, these Muhammad Atta types, had piloted those planes and done all that damage, and then been brought in with truckloads of explosives, it just doesn't add up. So people, there's a mental block that has been placed inside the mind. I don't know if it's the frontal lobes or the cerebellum or where they've placed these things, which you can't follow through the simplest equation. So what we have in 9/11 and in COVID are blatant contradictions. Time does not resolve blatant contradictions. So now that Weldon and hopefully Johnson and maybe some others are going to bring this thing up, they have to be very careful. And they're going to receive tremendous pushback. But as I say, time does not solve contradictions. That's the reason we need to think in dialectical terms and not in the way that we're taught to think, is that everything sort of melts into one, and it's, as Elsa mentioned, total confusion. And we can't really say anything for absolute certainty. And, there is no truth because everything is mixed together, and everybody's got their point of view, and there's no objective truth. Well, there's an objective truth regarding 9/11 that was brought out by your own government, okay? And that has implications. So when I used to show these people the 7-second destruction of Building 7, and they acted really with pain. But I want you to consider the pain that has been inflicted by the United States imperialism around the world. We're talking millions, tens of millions of deaths. What they're facilitating in Gaza and the West Bank. That's real pain. So whatever pain and discomfort you might suffer, by coming to terms with reality, looking it in the face and doing something about it, this will be a painful process, but it's relative.
It's necessary.
Well, I think it is necessary if we want to go on with this human project, spaceship Earth. I commented, look at it this way. Everybody talking about the possibilities of space travel. And we got Elon, and we got everybody, NASA and all. And we're speculating. And we got science fiction and everything else about the possibilities of space travel in the future. I'll tell you what, people, you're already in the spaceship, careening through the universe at X hundreds of thousands of miles per hour.
Supposedly.
Well, the flat Earth is another psyop, but So they go. These people are not sitting on their well, they're sitting on their asses in front of their computers, but they have a job to do. Tens of thousands of PSYOP people in the government or in the private advertising industry. These people are paid well for developing psychological manipulation. They're not just drinking coffee and eating donuts. They probably do that plenty, but they are expected to come up with proposals and then to bring those proposals into reality.
Well,
They
they didn't have to come up with it because, like in the book of Enoch, that was taken out of the Bible. It talks about a flat Earth with a firmament above, and there's a lot of other ancient cultures who believe that. So I guess they didn't have to really come up with it. That's what I'm saying.
Well, a lot of people believed in flat Earth back then. It's what they see around them. Of course, there was Aristotle, that's 300 BC. He figured out that the Earth was round, but the populace, the massive populace, and certainly the clergy and so on, believed that it was a flat Earth. But we won't have time. We might get into that at one of our future. Point is, people, let's focus on 9/11 and COVID pandemic and the parallels between them. And you will post that 3-hour presentation and question and answer with Richard Gage, because he is doing due diligence.
All right.
He woke up in 2006, which is a little bit late. And they, as he says, the whole thing hit him over the head with a 2x4 because he was not a conspiracy theorist of any kind. He was a go along, get along type of person. Yeah. But he's got the integrity. He saw with his 2 eyes, and David Ray Griffin helped to wake him up. And since then, he has just been doing great work.
All right. Well, that's a good way to end it. Let us know in the comments if you'd like us to delve deep into the flat Earth theory or ancient aliens, maybe.
Okay. All right.
Let us know. Well, the ancient aliens, I mean, geez, that's.
Well, you did bring to my attention some of the artifacts that apparently were discovered back in the ancient times that looked like chariots and looked like automobiles and many things like that. I'll try to look into it more, and we might get into that. But on this, leave us a comment. As I pointed out in a recent, I think it was an email or something, that they've got people paranoid. That's one reason for those movies that Gage was showing, to make us all paranoid. So we've had people fired. We've had people for leaving a like. Okay, some critic of COVID, and you listen to their video, and then you leave a like, and your boss fires you the next day. So they have us all paranoid. So if they leave a like, we don't even get any likes, do we? Yes.
Yeah, we do, like 5 or 6. But
there's you and me, so that's 2.
Hector said, my brother said he was getting a visa for somewhere, I forget, maybe like Cambodia, And part of, besides all his basic information, he had to put down his Facebook account.
Oh, that's interesting.
They had to check
How are
that
they going to review that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you see, I think I wrote a Substack on Palantir and how they this is a surveillance state. So we've lost our sovereignty, people, and we need to try and get it back.
But it's funny because a lot of people, like on Facebook, they just give away their their information willingly.
Yeah, naive.
What they post on there, I mean, they want people to know. But anyway.
Well, but these sensitive areas, people realize they have to be careful and question the COVID narrative or the 9/11 narrative. And consequently, it's self-censorship.
All right. Till next time.
Okay. I'll see you soon.